Welcome back to episode 182 of 5 Drinks Through Midnight. Into the show, we bring the questions, guests bring the drinks. We try to wrap up before midnight. Today, this episode takes place right before Ardbeg Day, as we head to the offices of Moët Hennessy to talk to Travis Tidwell, National Brand Ambassador of Ardbeg. But before we get started, like, subscribe, hit the bells, the whistles, leave a comment if you like what we're doing. Let's get started. For joining me. 5 drinks through midnight, 5 drinks, 5 questions, midnight, whatever comes first. Thank you so much for having us at Moët Hennessy. Also, happy Ardbeg Day. How you doing today, sir?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you. Guess let's dive right into it. What are we drinking first?
So today we have one of our flagship whiskeys, which is Ardbeg 10-year-old.
Awesome.
One of my personal favorites. And one of my personal favorites, kind of been a flagship of the distillery, flagship of the Ardbeg brand. One of the iconic whiskeys that we were trying to get back to when we first purchased and resurrected the distillery in 1997.
Oh wow!
It took us 10 years to be able to recreate this whiskey, but I think it's been one of the fan favorites. It's something we're known for. It's unapologetically Ardbeg.
Yep.
So if people ask me what's the truest expression of Ardbeg, I always lean towards the 10-year-old.
Agreed.
So yeah. Cheers.
Oh, it's a great way to kick off Ardbeg Day. Oh, that's so nice.
Indeed.
Oh, all right. Question 1. It's always an origin story.
Okay.
How'd you get started in the spirits business?
Yep. So I grew up in a really small town in Central California near Yosemite.
Okay.
Had always worked in restaurants my whole life up there. That's pretty much what I've always done. Got inspired while working in restaurants to go to culinary school. So I moved down to Orange County, California to attend culinary school. While I was in culinary school, I was working behind a bar as a bar back. Okay. And at the time I had a great manager who would let me taste one spirit on the back bar every night when we closed. And at that time I was also taking wine classes and electives focused on beverages, because why wouldn't you in culinary school? And I fell in love with just the drinks business, wine, spirits, whiskey. And I started tasting a lot of the flavors that we were studying in the wine classes in actual spirits.
Okay.
So I would go through the bar at night and smell different bottles and eventually taste kind of one of everything. And the one bottle that really stood out was a bottle of single malt Scotch whiskey. So I was always the young kind of guy with all my friends going out and drinking single malt Scotch whiskey at 21, 22, and all my friends are drinking shots and things like that.
Fireball.
Yeah. and I was drinking Scotch whiskey at such a young age, 22, and everybody was like, "Who are you?" You know. But I fell in love with it. So I had a couple mentors who saw that I was super passionate about whiskey, so they started hiring me as like assistant ambassador work.
Okay.
And that was with William Grant back in the day. And I just really fell in love with it and dove really far into the rabbit hole from that.
Awesome.
So I started tasting, collecting, reading, studying. And now I'm a plethora of useless knowledge when it comes to whiskey.
Excellent.
So,
when did you join the Ardbeg team? It's recently, right?
So I have been working on Glenmorangie and Ardbeg for about almost 10 years.
Oh wow, that's not easy.
But I was just recently promoted to National Ardbeg Ambassador in February.
Okay.
So just relatively recent. So now covering the whole United States for Ardbeg.
All right.
Yeah, so it's quite exciting. Ardbeg has always been near and dear to my heart. That's the reason why I joined on for Glenmorangie and Ardbeg about 10 years ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You said Pete had at a very early age. I mean, you kind of nailed it, but my follow-up question was, who hurt you? Because again, not many 21-year-olds are really into like a peated single malt. Like that's a big palate. Like, do you like your culinary background?
Yeah.
Do you think that's kind of where that?
To be honest, I hurt myself. I was on a snowboarding trip in Park City, Utah.
Okay.
And I saw a bottle of Ardbeg 10-year-old at a state liquor store, and I loved the packaging. It just seemed quirky, unique, kind of different, and I've kind of always resonated with being a bit quirky, a bit different. And so I bought it on a whim, and then throughout the weekend, after we would snowboard and kind of hang out at the house and stuff, just sipping on Ardbeg out in the cold weather with the fresh pine trees and the snow, there's just something magical about sipping Ardbeg outside. And that for me was like the light bulb moment of really falling in love with peated whiskeys.
Okay.
While I was working in the bar, there was a whiskey that kind of really intrigued me to peated whiskeys up on the island of Orkney. So kind of alluding to who that might have been. And that was the one that really kind of like started the whole curiosity of what is this so different than anything else. And I've always been the one that kind of likes being a bit different.
Gotcha.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
With your bartender background, just our last follow-up, do you have a favorite Ardbeg cocktail?
So my personal favorite is just an Ardbeg Old Fashioned.
Okay.
With 10-year-old specifically.
Okay.
Because there's something magical that happens with that slightly sooty, ashy characteristic of Ardbeg 10. But Ardbeg 10 also has a lot of brilliant tropical fruits and quite fruity. So it matches really well in an old fashioned with bitters, and if it's done properly, it's this ebb and flow of sweet, smoky, savory, and it kind of hits all elements in a cocktail. And you know, for most, everybody has those ingredients in a bar.
Okay.
So pretty much every bar can make it. So it's kind of my staple. If I'm at like a really nice cocktail bar or something, I've really enjoyed like a last word with Ardbeg 10 in substitution of the gin, but also like a Ardbeg mojito or mint julep is quite nice as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. That's an awesome origin story. Question one.
Yeah.
Cheers. Question two, drink two. What are we drinking?
Drink number 2 is Ardbeg 17-year-old.
Yeah.
So going back to an iconic classic, when I mentioned Ardbeg has a kind of a roller coaster history where we had some ups and downs. When we reopened in 1997, we had a huge gap production in whiskey. So we didn't have a lot of new spirit because we weren't producing essentially for roughly 16 years. There was a little bit of whiskey making happening off and on, but that was more of contract blends. So we essentially had to recreate and start over. So we created a Peated After Maturity, which was a series of whiskeys. But this was one of the whiskeys that really became a cult following whiskey because we did have 17 and older whiskeys when we reopened the distillery. So this was one of the first releases about 25 years ago that we created, and it became one of the fan favorites of Ardbeg, the original 17. So this is an ode to the original 17, trying our hardest to recreate that iconic classic 17-year-old from 25 years ago.
Awesome.
So what we have is a lightly peated or medium peated Ardbeg, which is quite uncharacteristic for the Ardbeg brand, but it would have been something that would have happened, 25, 30 years ago with the seasons and barley, and if there's a lot of heavy rain, then they can't actually dig up the peat and malt the barley with peat. So yeah, this was a marriage of, lightly peated, medium peated, and heavily peated whiskeys, but the original 17 ended up being a medium style peated whiskey. Also, it was one of the few whiskeys that was bottled at a little bit lower strength, and that's why this particular expression is also bottled at the 40% ABV. Yeah.
Awesome.
But it's a cracking brand, one of my personal favorites. Soft, fruity, elegant,
Can't go wrong with that.
but it's still rich, vibrant, creamy.
Yep. It still has that hint of Ardbeg to it.
Very much so, yeah.
Oh, all right. So, question 2 comes from our mutual friend Cam, and also former guest. So, Cam wants to know, and I have to read it just to make sure I get it right. Why is the use of the first, second, and third fill so important to Ardbeg, and why don't you see it more in American whiskeys?
Great question. So the reason we like to use first, second, and third fill casks at Ardbeg is because, as you can tell with the color of this whiskey, Ardbeg is all natural. We don't add any coloring. So when we do that, we're showcasing that this is a lighter colored whiskey because it's a good indicator that we're using some second and third fill casks. The reason for that is we really love our spirit character to shine through in the whiskeys.
Okay.
When you use a lot of first fill American white oak, you're getting a lot more heavy notes of vanilla, caramel, toasted coconut, because you're getting more extraction from the oak in the whiskey. We want the peat, we want the spirit characters, that soot and fruit we talk about with Ardbeg quite a bit. We want that to shine through in the whiskey. So the more times you use a barrel, you're going to get less oak extraction and more of the spirit character.
Okay.
So our whiskey maker, Dr. Bill, does a great job of balancing the two. Using some first fill to get the vanilla, caramel, toasted coconut kind of flavors that we're looking for, but then also using the second and third fill if we need more peat, more smoke, more spirit character to come through in the whiskey. The reason we don't see it too much in American whiskey is because by law they're not allowed to be honest. They have to use new charred oak every time they put whiskey into a barrel. So bourbons by nature are rich, robust, heavy, oaky, spicy. They're also making their whiskeys from a mash bill of predominantly corn, and corn is a much more hardy grain than what we use being malted barley. Malted barley is much more delicate, so we typically don't like to use the brand new oak because it can dominate and take over the whiskey. We've done it every now and again, and we use small portions of virgin oak in our whiskeys, but it's more of to add an extra layer of complexity to some of the whiskeys, yeah.
Awesome. Would you be down for a rapid fire quick?
Sure.
Because we're just becoming friends, so figure we do a little rapid fire, and since it is Ardbeg Day, we kind of specialize them a little bit. Neat rocks or chaos?
Everything.
Okay.
I always say I'm kind of a mood drinker, right? So when people ask me what my favorite band is, well, it depends on what kind of mood you're in, you know? So in a setting like this, I love drinking whiskey neat.
Okay.
If I'm out with friends in a great cocktail bar, I'll have it with cocktails and things. Or if I'm with my boss on Islay, it's chaos.
It's chaos.
Because he's been known to do some pretty wild things.
Yes.
You'll have to ask him about a Bucky Brecken. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Islay Sunrise or Highland Nightcap?
That's a tough one. They're both great. Probably Islay Sunrise.
All right.
I found once I've adapted and kind of left the bar world, it took me a couple of years, but now I find I'm quite a morning person.
Okay.
So waking up early, kind of catching the sunrise is always something cool. And with a dram of Ardbeg.
All right.
Why not?
All right, perfect. Ardbeg before breakfast, horrifying or heroic?
I think heroic. Ardbeg Bloody Marys are incredible.
Yes, they are. Very much so, yeah.
And also, like, if you were to do like a Rainbow Gin Fizz, but instead of the gin, use this.
17. Oh, I bet that's fucking delicious.
Pretty killer cocktail.
That's, okay.
That's one of my favorite breakfast cocktails. Every time I'm in New Orleans, Rainbow's Gin Fizz.
Was Ardbeg 17?
No, just in general. But
okay.
yeah, substituting out that for this, I think would be quite good.
Fuck yeah, yep, all right. You can only use one glass for the rest of your life. What is it?
Probably like an all-purpose white wine glass, to be honest.
All right.
Because you can use that for pretty much everything.
Okay.
You can use it for whiskey, you can use it for small cocktails, you can use it for wine, you can use it for spirits. So yeah, probably like an all-purpose white wine glass.
Best city for whiskey nerds?
I think there's a couple great cities, Chicago being one of them.
Okay.
You have a great bar like Delilah's. New York, obviously. There's so many great whiskey bars here in New York. You've got Seattle with some great bars up there that have some amazing collections. Washington, D.C. with Jack Rose. My buddy runs a really amazing bar in Alaska.
Oh, okay.
Called Fiore di Italia.
All right, awesome.
So he has an incredible whiskey collection up there. So yeah, I think you can find whiskey everywhere if you're willing to look for it.
Okay. Worst airport to fly through with some samples?
Well,
New York.
I was gonna say LAX.
Okay.
So I'm based in LAX, and I have had some unfortunate stories with my very well-traveled Pelican case that is not meant to break bottles, but the most broken bottles I've had is in LAX.
Okay.
Sadly, my home airport.
All right.
Represent.
One thing every new whiskey rep should know.
Keep at it. It takes time. There's so much information. There's so much great whiskey out there. And it just takes tasting the right whiskey to find the one that's meant for you, right? So I would say just keep with it, because you always have, people are going to say, oh, I don't like this stuff, I don't drink it, but there is a whiskey for everyone. You just gotta find the right one,
If Ardbeg were a band, what genre of band would it be?
I think it'd probably be like a progressive rock band, or like a punk band, something along those lines, because it's one of those whiskeys that doesn't take itself too serious, but underneath it all, there's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of great characteristics, there's a lot of great flavor, and there's some absolute stunners in Ardbeg's range.
Okay.
So yeah, I think somewhere in that, like a really eclectic and like progressive rock band or like a punk band is trying to say a certain message, but underneath, not directly, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Favorite guilty pleasure drink when no one else is watching?
I'm a big fan of coconut water.
Okay.
But I also do love chartreuse.
All right.
So I've been known to have chartreuse every now and again. Yeah.
I love a chartreuse. So
yeah. Me too.
And then distillery dog or distillery cat?
Cat for sure.
Okay.
Anybody who knows me knows I'm a cat person.
All right.
So, and I think they're just more effective.
Favorite festival booth or fireside pour?
Fireside pour.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in the mountains, so I love the outdoors. I mentioned it kind of earlier, drinking Ardbeg in the cold snow, fresh pine trees. There's just nothing better than being outdoors and being by a campfire or sharing whiskey with friends. I find like you're always more relaxed when you're outside as well.
Okay.
I find. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Question 2 in the books.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Question 3, drink 3? What are we drinking?
So here we have one of our oldest expressions from Ardbeg, the 25-year-old.
Fuck, okay.
Yeah, quite a special one. You can notice in the color immediately, it's quite a bit darker.
Yeah.
This is all American White Oak matured whiskey, and so a combination of first, second, and third fill. But I truly love older Ardbegs in ex-bourbon casks because it really brings through our distillery characteristics. For me, lots of like tropical notes, charred pineapple, charred mango. Then you get the sooty, kind of ashy quality, but it's more on the back end for these older style Ardbegs. But they're beautifully balanced. Just really embraces kind of what we do at Ardbeg. The new make spirit from Ardbeg is always quite tropical, quite fruity. But when we age it, it kind of gets covered up a little bit with all the smoky peat. But as the whiskeys mature and get older and older, the peat will slowly fall off over the years. So you're left with this beautifully balanced kind of soot and fruit combination going on with Ardbeg 25. And it's also a great time because we're celebrating our 25 years with the Ardbeg Committee.
Oh, very nice.
So when we reopened the distillery, we created a committee to basically, hopefully keep the lights on at Ardbeg for the rest of eternity. The way we did that was creating a committee of fans and like-minded individuals who loved Ardbeg as a brand. So every year we do special releases to celebrate the committee, and this year is our 25 years of that committee. So
awesome.
What's better than having a little 25 to celebrate the 25 years of the committee?
Cheers. Oh, fuck yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That does just leave you, wow. That's all I can say.
Yeah. It's a really special.
That is.
And it took us quite a few years to get back to, being able to release a 25-year-old whiskey because we just didn't have a lot of inventory. We didn't have a lot of production. Being closed for 16 years, we had to restart production in about 1998, and all that whiskey we were producing was going to make, hopefully, to become a 10-year-old. And that was our flagship, our core. So we were selling mostly 10-year-old. And slowly over the years, we kept setting aside a couple barrels here, to where we would be able to let those age up to 25 years. And there's just not a ton of it. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's really quite a special brand.
That is, yeah. It just has me speechless. That is just so fucking delicious.
Yeah, it's just one of those whiskeys that you could let it sit in your glass for a while.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna blossom.
Keep moving.
It's gonna keep getting complex and open up. Yeah. And this is a fresh pour out of the bottle, so if you're into neck pours or it's in my opinion, it's only gonna get better with a little bit of time.
Agreed. Jeez, wow, that is absolutely amazing. All right, so question 3. We call this our talking shit segment. We're not really talking about shit, but it's just because we've had 3 drinks and now we're a little bit more open and honest with ourselves. So this one I have to read because again, this is another Cam question.
Right.
He gave us the full lowdown. Can you tell us the time that you and the ambassador team got stranded in Glasgow waiting for the plane?
Oh man! So this was about 2 years ago, and we had a whole ambassador team over in Glasgow, trying to make the flight to Islay so we could go see Ardbeg. We tried 3 separate days to go to Islay, and apparently Loganair brought in a new plane that is supposedly better in those weather conditions to be able to fly to Islay, but they can't land by instrument with these new planes. And the airport on Islay is a very, very small bungalow. The runway is on the ocean, essentially, so it's an old military landing strip. And, we were there. We had our bags. We were all ready to go. We got on the plane. One time we got on the plane, they checked all our bags, brought them on. We get on the plane, we sit for about 20, 30 minutes, and then they kick us off the plane, delay it, and then eventually an hour later they cancel the flight. They gave us vouchers for the hotel right at the airport. Not very great. So we continued to do that two days in a row, and eventually on the 3rd day, the flight just didn't go again. So I don't recommend going to Scotland in February, trying to fly over to Islay. If you're going to do it, take the ferry because it's a lot more reliable. But the problem at that time as well is they were working on the ferry terminals and the weather was quite rough, so the ferries actually couldn't berth into the port their traditional normal way. And their ferries were delayed as well, so it's just the whole experience. Needless to say, we, as an ambassador team, did our best to drink that little airport hotel out of their whiskey selection. And we did quite a good job at that, I would say. It was quite a bummer. So we didn't end up making it to Ardbeg on that trip. So we just detoured and went up to the Highlands and visited our sister distillery, Glenmorangie, and a couple other distilleries up there as well.
Then he had a follow-up question, and he wants to know if you will name the brand ambassador that hates the ferry and gets a little Ardbeg green on the trip over. Is it you?
It's not me.
Okay, there we go. Questions.
It's not me. It's one of our great ambassadors who's based in Miami, Florida, and she's amazing, but she doesn't do too well with the boats and seasickness.
Gotcha. Same here. So have you ridden the Coarsegold?
I have actually been on a really small little motorboat really close to the Coarsegold quite a few years ago. So many years ago, I worked for a distillery that was on Moët.
Okay.
And we actually made a trip over to Moët in a little speedster boat, and we got to go past the Coarsegold, which was really quite cool. Really cool to see. It's very active and kind of scary.
Yeah, no, it scares the shit out of me. When we interviewed Lisa Pope, she talked about it, and I was like, no way in hell would I, because they say that you ride it down, and then it's a giant speedboat, and it powers you out, and I'm like, my luck, the boat breaks down as we're going, and then we're fucked. So not for me.
It's sketchy. You can look at videos online and stuff of people, and I have a friend who swam through it.
Oh
actually.
shit!
Yeah, he's a native. His family's from Islay, and he did a whole swim around the island. Actually.
Oh wow!
Yeah, his name's Johnny Mundell.
Did he? Was that for? There was a Ardbeg there was a documentary about that.
The Great Islay Swim.
Yeah.
So he's one of the individuals who did the Great Islay Swim.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so he's one of them, and he swam through it.
Oh jeez.
He's the only guy that didn't wear a wetsuit as well.
Okay.
So he went full on Speedo, swam across.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy, mental.
Yeah, that's not my idea of fun. So I will sit here and drink a 25 and just
Cheers to that.
Cheers. There we go. Question 4, drink 4. What are we drinking?
What we have here is backpedaling a little bit, but we're going to our Ardbeg Trayvon or 19-year-old.
Fuck yeah.
So this is one of the whiskeys that we do have a bit more of as part of the core expression. So we just kind of launched the Ardbeg 19-year-old series a couple of years ago, but this is batch number 6, and it is part of a core range. But a bit different than the 25-year-old, which we just tasted. A bit bigger, a bit more robust. It has some presence of Oloroso sherry cask matured whiskeys in here, which gives it a little bit more vibrancy. I think the color is a bit darker than the 25-year-old as well. And that's due to the influence of those Oloroso sherry casks, but still predominantly ex-bourbon cask matured, but bigger, more robust, a little bit more saline, not as tropical as the previous whiskey, but a lovely, aged Ardbeg, and also a little bit more price point friendly.
Yeah, not gonna say no if you give me a 19-year-old whiskey to drink. So
cheers,
especially on Ardbeg night. Oh yeah,
that's good too.
That is really good.
Yeah, the sherry casks really add a little bit of dark fruit nuttiness. I dare say like a slight chocolatey note.
Yeah. I get a little nutty, for me it's very nutty and I like that. That's really nice. It's
classic characteristic you get from Oloroso sherry cask.
Yeah.
Yes.
Taking that one too.
Quite nice.
Yeah. We're gonna be best friends. You have not steered me wrong yet today, so. Alright, so question 4. We have you're the face of one of the most unique whiskeys on the planet. What's the weirdest reaction you've ever gotten to someone who's tried Ardbeg for the first time?
I mean, I've kind of seen it all.
Yeah.
I've had first-time whiskey drinkers who absolutely love it because it's so unique and different, unlike anything they've ever had.
Yep.
And then I've had people actually spit it back into their glass because it's so foreign to some people. They're just like, what in the world is going on? It's supposed to taste like this, and I've heard reactions like that, and I was like, absolutely. This is very much a traditional style for Islay and the islands. They're very hardy people out there, so they make do with what they have, and an abundance of peat was what they had, and they utilize that to heat their homes, cook their food, dry their clothes, and at the same time they were making whiskey, so it's only inherent in nature that you would have a peated whiskey from the islands. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So I love the diverse reactions, because I'm the kind of person that I want to like something that not everybody else likes as well. So if everybody likes it, then I typically don't want to like that for some reason. That's just my human nature. I like to be the odd, quirky one that likes things a bit different, I suppose.
Agreed. We interviewed Mr. Lyon, and he talked about almost the same thing. He likes to be the influencer of his friends, being like, "Here, try this," and coming from him, it's going to be fucking good. Are you kind of the same way with your friend group, non-work kind of thing? Like,
I've definitely turned on friends to Scotch whiskey, single malt, weird, quirky things that they've never had before. I do it with sushi a lot too.
Okay.
If I see something obscure and weird on the sushi menu, I'm probably gonna order it. Yeah. Monkfish liver. Things like that. So definitely. I'm the one that is always seeking the weird, quirky things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, my mom was a chef, and we had a rule at home that was growing up was you had to at least try it before you told her you didn't like it. So there was no I don't like this, and there was always you had to say why. And I think that kind of has led to the I will try anything. Anything once, I will eat. So
I'm pretty much the same. Pretty much the same.
Weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
Monkfish liver. I've had jellyfish sushi.
Okay.
Live squid.
Yep.
That's some fun, quirky things.
I would recommend not fermented shark from Iceland. So do not.
I do really want to try that.
No, you
actually.
don't.
I do want to try it.
You taste it for months. It comes back and gets you.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've watched a whole documentary about that, and I actually do want to try it, but I'll probably regret it.
It's totally worth it. But what do you think is one of the most biggest misunderstandings about Ardbeg?
It's kind of one of those things, right? Like, Ardbeg is such a historic and traditional brand where we've been, an icon on Islay since 1815, but the whiskeys are really quite approachable. We're really a big, smoky, robust distillery and whiskey, but I think there's a whiskey for everybody in Ardbeg, and it just tastes, it's trying some of the different expressions to find the one, like, I think the 17-year-old is a great whiskey to introduce people to the whiskey category that are maybe not super familiar with peated whiskeys. But I think the biggest misconception is that, like, Ardbeg tastes like dirt or chewing on a campfire or something like that, when there's much more to it.
Yeah, it's way more complex than that. Like that.
I always try and just say, just taste it, right? Just taste it, because when you taste it, it's like an explosion of flavors. It's a very, very complex whiskey with so much going on, but it's also really drinkable, so yeah. Not all Islas are created equal.
Yeah. There we go. Question 4.
All right. Cheers.
Question 5. Drink 5. Last drink of the night. What are we drinking?
So this is the Ardbeg Day festival bottling. So this is the whole reason we celebrate Ardbeg Day. It's a festival on Islay about food, music, and malt, but it's really turned into quite a whiskey festival. So every distillery has their own day, and every distillery releases a special edition or special bottling. For us this year, it's called Smokyverse, which is an experiment that happens during the mashing process of production, where we're doing a high gravity in mashing, which is essentially pumping in a lot more malt or barley to the 30 cycles of water ratio. So we're extracting more sugary liquid, which brings up the sugar content, which gives us a higher gravity mashing. Basically, it gives us more sugar content in the wort, which is the sugary liquid that we will then take and transfer over to fermentation, which will then start creating our brewer's beer. But what that does is it gives us more esters, more congeners, and creates more fruity flavors during the mashing process, which will then carry over into fermentation.
Okay.
So yeah, it's quite a geeky, fun experiment.
Awesome.
We try to do alternating experiments at the distillery, where sometimes we'll do heavy wood maturation experiments with different types of oak and casks, and then sometimes we do a lot of distillation experiments or experimentation during production that will change and alter the flavors in the final whiskey. So, needless to say, all American white oak here, a good amount of second fill or refill bourbon casks, but it's quite an interesting one. I'll let you kind of give it a nose and a whirl and see what you think.
Ooh. Citrusy? Like, I get a little, real kind of heavy orange citrus kind of feel to it. Like,
yeah, for me, big burst of fruitiness on the nose. That citrus, lemon peel, almost like a charred lemon peel. But then on the mid palate, you get this big burst of smoke and peat.
Yep.
And then on the finish, it has like this really traditional Scottish candy, like a barley chew.
Yeah.
Which is that raw barley characteristic on the finish with some of that smoke. But for me, it's the nose. It's very fruity, very tropical. Then as you taste it, burst of peat and smoke. And then it finishes kind of with that raw barley, kind of like raw ingredient that we're actually making the whiskey from. So that's why we call it Smokyverse. As you can see on the packaging, we're highlighting the mash tun, which is where we cook the mash or cook the barley. And that's why it's a high gravity mash experiment.
Very nice.
Bringing in more tons of barley to water ratio to bring up the gravity or the sugar content in the mash.
Awesome. Do the sheeps or the dog or the submarine
tractor,
or the tractor have any special meaning, or just decoration?
Yeah, that's more for just like little notes of the distillery. So this is a tractor we use at the distillery. You know, there's sheep right outside.
Yep.
Outside of the distillery there.
Dog.
That's Shorty, our mascot. That's one of the fairies there. And then on the other side, you can see the still where we actually make the whiskey, and that's our spirit safe. Yeah.
Yep. All right.
And then, of course, we'd be remiss without a barrel.
Of course.
And then this is the actual mash tun that has its full.
Very nice.
Because it's a semi-lauter mash tun and sealed up top. But yeah, we just did this here as like a galaxy, a black hole of everything going into the mash tun.
Awesome.
To produce that high gravity.
Perfect.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's great fun.
This is great. And again, happy Ardbeg Day.
Yeah, happy Ardbeg Day.
All right, so question 5 comes down. The flip of the Whiskey Wednesday coin. You can flip it, you can spin it, you can do whatever you want. The coin will give us the answer. You don't technically have to answer.
Okay.
But if you feel so inclined to answer, please do. One side says fuck yeah, one side says fuck no. Again, it's just a fun, silly way to end the night. But
I love the coin. It's quite fitting for this year's Ardbeg.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought. Like, you had the whole kind of space, so that is our space coin. We do 4 coins a year. Yeah, they're just absolutely just
awesome.
fun to do. But so, question 5. If it's not smoky enough to scare your neighbors, is it even considered Ardbeg?
I would say no.
Okay.
Because we do have some beautiful whiskeys in Ardbeg that are medium or lightly peated. 17 is a great example. One of my favorites from years ago, which was a very polarizing whiskey that a lot of people did not like, but I loved it, was called Blasda.
Okay.
And it was very untraditional. It was in a clear glass bottle and only 8 ppms, which is very, very low for Ardbeg.
Okay.
Traditionally, we're at 55 to 65.
Right.
So I think no. I think Ardbeg is beautiful in a lot of forms, but some true Ardbegians, the die-hard fans, will tell you it has to be heavily peated. It has to be, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to go for the heavily peated.
Gotcha.
But every now and again, it's nice to wean back a little bit and have something that's like, a little bit balanced.
Awesome.
So yeah.
All right.
I guess that's a very easy way of going around the question, not actually answering the question.
It's perfect. Well, there we go, guys. Thank you so much for doing this. That's 5 drinks down, 5 questions answered. Thank you so much for having us at Moët Hennessy. Really appreciate it, and I can't wait till we drink together again. So
Awesome.
Cheers.
Well, cheers. Thank you so much again.